I bought both of these generators to see which one is really better, so hopefully the information here can help you if you're looking at buying one of these.
The Champion does have more starting watts overall with 4,000 versus 3,600, but it only has 100 running watts more on gasoline and propane and 0.9 amps more power. Now when it comes to run times, these are estimated because they don't give you a lot of information, and they both share a 1.54 gallon fuel tank. Both of these generators were packaged well, and they do include items such as an oil funnel. They do include oil as well, but only the WEN generator will come with a toolkit. They both come with the regulators and also warranty and manual information as well, but the Champion provides slightly more. Both of these generators have very similar options like a TTR 30 amp plug, 20 amp plugs, and they do provide a 12 volt socket, but the WEN generator does come with USB ports. It also comes with a data meter display to show you volts, also frequency, along with a manual eco switch versus the Champion is automatically placed in the eco when you start it, and they both have carbon monoxide detectors. Now you can parallel both of these generators, but you cannot parallel them together because Champion decides to use their own proprietary square plugs versus most other companies use round ones, which you can use with other generators. Both generators will utilize a quick coupler for their propane hookup, but I do like the one on the WEN generator just a little better. On the side of the generator, they're almost identical, both having pull cords, one being white, one being black, and they do have fuel selector switches that are identical, just stickered differently, but they both have the detent, which I like. This automatically places it into the correct position versus having to guess. As we take a look at the other side of the generator, they each have quick tabs to remove the side door, which makes servicing much easier. You don't need tools. I like this. Now, being that these generators are made in the same plant in Vietnam, they actually are completely identical when it comes to the engine and also the frame. There's only a couple differences really, but the engines are 149cc. They share the same engine family and are from Zonzin Engine Company. The Champion will come with an analog fuel gauge, while the WEN has a digital one on the display. Both of these generators were weighed without fuel, and the WEN generator comes in at almost exactly 1 pound less.
Okay, so before we start load checking and also doing some sound tests, we're going to start both of these on propane because the Champion, I've heard a few complaints that it's really hard to start for like 2 people so far, at least I've heard. So maybe others as well, but I'm gonna start both of these. They haven't been ran now in 2 days. So if we take a look, this right here is right about 79 degrees. Neither one have been started. That one there is also about 79 degrees. Check the concrete, should be slightly cooler. It's gonna be 100 degrees today, so we'll fire them up. Okay, in the instructions it says to put into the choke position and pull on the cord 3 times, then put it back into the propane position. Okay, so now that we got the air primed out, probably could have left it on choke a couple more pulls, but that's what it says to do. We'll try the WEN now and see what happens. Okay, the WEN unit is the same thing. Put into the choke position, pull 3 to 5 times, and then move it into the run position. And also make sure the eco mode is off. Okay, we'll add a little bit of fuel to each one of the generators. Okay, so now we're going to do a low RPM check to see which one has the lowest RPM at no load, and then we'll also keep track of the RPMs as load increases. Okay, so the eco is on. Just about 3,300 RPM, or a little over. Eco mode is on also for the win. And look at that, 300 RPM less. That's a decent amount, considering they are using the same engine. Okay, first test, just over 500 watts. And a little over 3,700 RPM. Okay, a little over 750 watts. And a little over 3,800 RPM. Okay, a little over 1,000 watts. In between 3,930 and 3,950 on the RPM. A little over 1,500 watts. And about 4,200 RPM. And about 2,050 watts. And about 4,460. And almost 2,600 watts. About 4,600 RPM. Now at this point, I'm really just looking to overload the generator a little bit as we look at the monitor. 2,700 as far as the watts go, but as far as our amps, we can only do 25, so we'll see how much farther we can get. Now that is pretty much our amp limit. 24.8 amps, and there is just a little bit more just to see how long it'll stay before it overloads, which that red light is actually on as we go take a look. Maxed out at RPM at almost 4,800. Hard to tell, but the red light is on. It's no longer green, but so far doing pretty good at holding almost 26 amps. And 2,900 watts, which is what the highest rating is for this. And at basically a full load still, we are still running a nice clean wave. Okay, now the win, 500 watt load or just a little above. And about 3,550 and a little over 750 watts. We're at about 3,650. A little over 1,000 watts. About 3,720, 3,730. Almost 1,550 watts. 3920 on the RPM and a little over 2060 watts. RPM, just about 2600 watts. We're at about 4350, 4360.
Now again, I'm just overloading the generator, trying to get it to shut off and kind of see where that limit is, which it does shut off sooner than the Champion, but it's still held fine and it's doing its job shutting off when it should.
And a nice clean sine wave still, running pretty much max RPM.
As we take a look at this chart, this shows us our RPM differences under loads of amps. If you look at the left, our amps, and then the RPM for each individual generator. When it comes to sound tests, there are variables, but each one was given a handicap of about 0.5. This makes it to where both generators are very close, but with maybe the wind being just slightly quieter.
Okay, so a couple of closeout notes, mainly on these types of regulators. Now one, if you look, this is the one that goes to the Champion, which look how short this cord is. I actually explained how short this was in my original video. If you had this hooked up to a propane tank and you wanted to move this to the rear side of the generator to keep the regulator from freezing up in colder conditions, it's actually a little bit harder with this. If you look at the WEN generator, look how long this hose is. This is much longer, and this is really what the Champion one should have been like. Not to mention the Champion does have a quick connect as well, but it does have this little adapter piece here. This is used to press an actuator that's actually inside this generator. And so this is telling the unit that is now switching over to propane, which if this breaks, which it can, so if you happen to be traveling or you drop it and it gets smashed and this breaks off, this can prevent you from using the generator on propane, which that can be a little bit of a problem. Sure, you could probably find a way to modify it, stick something in there and put a piece of tape, but that's just one thing that I found with this is if that breaks, that could turn into a problem. Versus the wind generator, this one here is just a standard quick connect and you can just plug it straight in. Now when it comes to these types of external load regulators, these of course I've mentioned before, I'm not really a fan of them because one, you can't modify these as easy to put onto an RV if you want to use your onboard tanks. These can strip out really easy, they can be damaged. You can do it, but you have to use heat and just take your time. But if you use too much heat, you can actually damage the regulators on both sides. So again, it's a real delicate process without damaging these. Now the models I like that have these on board are like the Pulsar 4000 dual fuel. That's an excellent generator, super popular seller that a lot of people have been purchasing. Not to mention it's also the same as the Max Peating Rods 4000 GT. That one has all kinds of features on it if you like push button start, and you can even use your phone as well. Now when it comes to these two generators, as far as price, the Champion is quite a bit more. It does have more power though if you want overall power as far as a 4000 starting watts, and also it seems to be able to hit those max numbers a little bit easier. Now if you're always running those higher numbers and you're running 75% of your generator's load and above consistently, you really should be buying something bigger. These are good for like the 115K AC unit on an RV or small loads in your house. These are not replacements for the bigger generators like a Champion 4500, a Predator 3500 and more. These are small suitcase generators for lighter duty work. Again, 115K AC unit, that's about 17 or 1800 watts, and it'll run perfectly for things like that. If you need more power, you have it for those circumstances when you need a little bit more for shorter durations. There is no reason to buy these and run them at their max potential. That is just absurd. You wouldn't do that with any piece of equipment running it consistently at its max loads. Now when it does come to these two generators, just due to the price, not to mention a longer cord, it also seems like it was just a pinch quieter. It does run lower RPM, so to me it seems like the WEN takes the win.